Buddy, thank you so much for coming back out to the Highways and Hedges Monday School Class Wednesday edition of the Book of Acts. Let's jump right in. Last week we covered Acts chapters 9 and 10, and of course those were salvation chapters. Acts chapter 9, we had Saul getting saved. In Acts chapter 10, we have the gospel being taken to the Gentiles. Very exciting times. So Acts 11 and 12 now speak of where are all these saved folks supposed to go? What are we supposed to do now? Once you're saved, where are you supposed to be taught the scriptures and hang out in fellowship with folks of like belief? Well, of course, that would be the church, which rolls right into Acts chapter 11, which talks of the church of Antioch, and Acts chapter 12, which leads into the prayer of the church and Peter being delivered from prison. The verses I want to speak to regarding Acts 11 and 12 are actually tied to chapter 12, verses 12 through 16. It reads as such, "And when he had considered the thing, he came to the house of Mary," this is Peter after he got released by God from jail, "the mother of John, whose surname was Mark, where many were gathered together praying." Now, how do you think they know to get together to pray? Because that's what Christians do. They pray for each other. Verse 13, "And as Peter knocked at the door of the gate, a damsel came to hearken named Rhoda. And when she knew Peter's voice, she opened not the gate for gladness, but ran in and told how Peter stood before the gate. And they said unto her, Thou art mad. But she constantly affirmed that it was even so. Then said they, It is his angel." You see, doubt even creeps into church folks, saved folks, because doubt is a part of life. So don't ever be too hard on yourself if you doubt, but you just gotta live in belief. Believe in what God can and does do for you every single day. Close it out with verse 16. "But Peter continued knocking, and when they had opened the door and saw him, they were astonished." Prayer answered. So, how does that tie into both chapter 11 and chapter 12? Of course, it's all about the church. Acts chapter 11 speaks mostly of the church at Antioch. And of course, here you'll see it in Acts 11:26. Christians were first called Christians at Antioch. It says, "And when he had found him, he brought him unto Antioch. And it came to pass that a whole year they assembled themselves with the church and taught much people. And the disciples were called Christians first in Antioch." The word Christian there means like Christ or Christ-like, meaning they are living and thinking and acting and doing the same works that Christ did in Antioch. They were a busy church. They were a soul-winning church. They were a praying church. And that is our goal. So as you read through Acts chapter 11, understand that this should be your goal as a Christian, to get into a church group. Of course, a church is not a building. A church is people of like faith. And so, church is ecclesia, or a called out assembly. It is people. People are the church. And so get into a good Bible believing church that's going to preach the King James Bible, that's going to help you understand it and read it and live it. That is the goal of Acts chapter 11, is to really build that foundation. And the church at Antioch is a wonderful example. Now we roll over into Acts chapter 12. Peter, we're going to see here in Acts 12, verse 1. "Now about the time that Herod the king stretched forth his hand to vex certain of the church, and he killed James, the brother of John, with the sword." So James was already martyred for the faith, and he arrested Peter, and he was going to kill Peter. But God had other plans. Because the church was praying, God moved. You'll read through Acts chapter 12. You'll see the miracle that had come about. Peter just walked right out of the prison gate in the middle of the night, walked straight to the house, and of course, continued to preach the gospel. Praying people rely on God to do things that are outside our comprehension. It's okay to have some doubt, but live in belief. Live in belief. These people prayed for Peter to be released. And when he showed up, they were astonished. And I think God got all the glory. And that should be our goal consistently. That's Acts chapter 11. Learn about the church at Antioch. Acts chapter 12. See the power of a praying people and watch God do great things. Oof, so exciting. Next week, we're going to cover Acts 13 and 14. When we go, we're going to go back to Antioch in Acts chapter 13. We were in Jerusalem in Acts 10. We were kind of all over the place in Acts 10. And then back to Antioch in 11, Jerusalem in chapter 12, and then back to Antioch in Acts 13. A lot of traveling. It's a fun time. Enjoy your study of Acts. Give God praise this week. Till we talk again.